You know what it is. That's right. It's time to talk money with your money nerd and financial coach. Now, tighten those purse strings and open those ears. It's the Money Talk with Tiff podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Money Talk with Tiff podcast. Today I have Robert Muncaster on the line. Now, Robert has been an entrepreneur as early as 12 years old, and he has spent the last 25 years as an expert in the debt collection industry, actually including owning his own agency. Robert has helped his clients recover millions of dollars while coaching consumers in difficult situations to conquer their challenges and move towards abundance with less stress. Now, utilizing this understanding of human behavior, he is now an NLP trained coach and is able to assist entrepreneurs and tradespeople with improving their cash flow. Now, before we get into our conversation today, because you know it's going to be good, I want to shout out our sponsors for today's episode. So our sponsor is Jasmine Mortgage Team. Now, Jasmine and her team knows financing your real estate will pay big dividends to your net worth, and you can sign up for a free consultation on the website at jasminemortgageteam.com. They specialize in mortgages for new home purchases, refinances for primary, secondary, or investment homes. They love the FIRE movement and especially house fire. Cash out refinances, jumbo, conventional, FHA, doctor loans, you name it, they got it. So if you're interested in getting any flavor of mortgage you can think of, Jasmine Mortgage Team is available to help you, and you will find them at jasminemortgageteam.com. All right, well, now that that's out the way, hey, Robert, how are you today?
Great. How are you, Tiffany?
I'm doing pretty good. So I am excited to talk to you because we're going to talk about a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and that's entrepreneurship and how it relates to your money. So I think to start off, because we kind of mentioned a little bit before we hit record, the different types of entrepreneurs there are. So maybe we can use that as a baseline. So what is a solopreneur?
Solopreneur, a great reference is, what is the book? Escapes me. No problem. So there's solopreneurs are basically the technicians. They've been doing a certain field, a certain task, and they believe that they can do it on their own and they can cut their boss out and they can venture out on their own. So they become solopreneurs. Or technicians moving to being, business owners. There's entrepreneurs, and, the entrepreneurs, they start to move into the management role, moving away from the technician into the management role. And then there's managers. And so it's really about how many people you have and how much you're delegating really dictates if you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur.
Very good. Very interesting. Because I know, we use all these preneur terms, like I've heard dualpreneur and all these other things. So it's interesting that, people can identify with different ways that they're running their business, with what type of preneur they are. I would say entrepreneur, but like I said, there's so many different kinds.
The book is by Michael Gerber.
Michael Gerber.
It's just escaping me the name. But yeah, it's what he says is there's solopreneurs, technicians he calls them, managers, entrepreneurs, and investors. So those are the four, and we all start coming into it. A lot of times, most of the time, we start as solopreneurs. The idea is to move to be an investor eventually, where it's completely hands off, it's passive, and I'm not looking at day to day, or I'm not even really looking at the business at all. It's just giving me a paycheck or money in.
Oh, well, I have a new goal. I want to be an investor. So with that being said, what are the challenges of solopreneurs and business owners to fortify their finances? I know personally, I have struggled at times, and that's with being a financial counselor. But, being a solopreneur, entrepreneur, what have you, it looks completely different than working your 9 to 5. So what are some challenges that we might run into as business owners?
As a new business owner, as a solopreneur, I think one of the biggest challenges is the art of delegation or not. We try to wear all the hats. For accounting, oh, I can do this. I'll just get QuickBooks and I'll do some entries. And we invest so much of our time doing what we're not familiar with. And the secret sauce is to focus as much time on the technician or on being the manager or being the entrepreneur and allowing your team to do what they're good at. So it's putting in place people that are experts, they're efficient with their time because they know what to do the task. So I think one of the biggest challenges, and I think it, is time management, is, all different parts of the machine are rolling. As a new business owner, we want to be on top of all of them. And perhaps at the beginning it's beneficial because I see how it works. But the challenge is delegating it, is moving it off your table so that you can do what you do best, whether that's the sales process, whether that's the product delivery.
Yeah. And, I just had this conversation with another entrepreneur friend where we were talking about how hard it is to give up your baby, right? And that might be the wrong way to put it, but, just giving up the reins sometimes is very difficult. And one thing I said to her was, I waited too long to give up the reins. I waited until I started getting burnt out, trying to do everything all by myself. And then, we both agreed once we hired our first people, we were like, oh, I don't want to do anything anymore. And then it just made it easy to start like giving up the reins to other specialists and let them focus on what their specialty is. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. And if we have any business owners listening, please start delegating as early as possible. Do not do like I did and wait too long and get burnt out. So
yeah, there's a lot of accountants that offer virtual CFO positions now where you pay them a monthly fee, and part-time they act as your chief financial officer. And I think, you touched on the baby. When I started my business, I looked at my cash flow as being the blood of my baby. I didn't, and so how am I efficiently using it, or am I needlessly draining this cash flow? And so that was my perspective. And I think the very beginning, to have a good foundation, you want to have a great accountant at the beginning. They will pay for themselves in reductions and cash flow, and then exactly where you are day to day once you have that financial system set up.
Absolutely. I agree with that as well. I had started a business during COVID, when COVID broke out in 2020, because of course I couldn't do a lot of what I was already doing because everything was shut down. So I couldn't speak. And so with that business, it wasn't until I hired a bookkeeper where I was like, oh, okay, now, because, revenue and profit is two different things. So the revenue looked great, but the profit was like, but having that insight. And so just to add on to what you're saying, there's different levels to the accounting thing too, because there's bookkeepers, which are like, beginner, they just keep up with your books and make sure everything is right. Then there's the accountants, and then there's the CFOs, the fractional CFOs. And I think I've had at least one of every person on this podcast talking about that. So if you're interested, I'll put the links for all those episodes, but it's a difference in what they all do. And so I feel like understanding what you actually need is important as well, because they're all very different.
Absolutely.
Now, what is another challenge that entrepreneurs or small business owners might run into on this journey?
One of the biggest challenges I see is ambiguity in agreements. I'm a technician, I'm here to offer my services, and not creating clear agreements with my customers, maybe not even having a clear product offering and just creating something on the fly and saying, I'm so good at this. I think it creates confusion in the market, and a confused client doesn't buy. And so the clearer my agreement is with them up front, it's so powerful because, as a business owner, as owning a collection agency for 25 years, I would say 80% of the files that I received for collection were based on not a clear agreement. And that's why it went to collections. It was a difference of opinions. As let's say a contractor, I had a home automation company come in, and one of the arts of, if you're going to be doing that type of work in somebody's home, is having a clear agreement at the beginning, giving them an estimate, and getting them to sign a work order. And if they say, "Oh, I like that. While you're here, can you dig this ditch?" or whatever it is you're doing, and having a change order on hand to say, "No problem, I'll do that. Sign here." And now you're proving that they've requested it. Because without that change order, what I've seen so many times over and over again is, "Oh no, that was included in the price. Oh no, that they just threw that in. I appreciate it." And with that ambiguity, now where does it go? It can go to court, it can go to collections, or it can just not get, it's such a challenge. And so having, at the beginning of your product offering, at the beginning of your business, is sit down, invest the money with a lawyer, and create clear agreements and understand the process.
That is so important. And I would also add, have agreements, period. Because some people don't even have agreements. They're just like, "Oh yeah, I can do this for you." And, it's just a verbal thing. But I have run into business consulting clients where they're like, okay, the scope creep, like you were saying, where it's like, "Oh, well, can you do this? Okay, you do that. Okay, you do this. Oh, I thought this was included." And da, 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 da. And it just causes a whole bunch of trouble. And I've even personally dealt with that as well, to where I had to put the brakes on a client because I'm like, wait a minute, like this is not, so having that document or something that says exactly what you're supposed to be doing, whether it's in the form of an estimate, an agreement, depending on your business model, is so very important. And I cannot stress that enough. So thank you for bringing that up.
And if it is an estimate, then having a clear agreement that they accept that estimate. That's I can give you an estimate and they call, "Okay, go ahead. How do I prove that they said that?" And to actually go one step further in the collection process, if there is no clear agreement, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a paralegal, I'm not licensed to provide legal advice. In my experience, what I've seen is, if it goes to court and you don't have a clear agreement of what your remuneration is, what you're charging, well, now I've seen you have to bring 3 experts in to quote what they would charge for the job. And then it goes to the difference of the average of the 3, but still it's up to the courts to say, "I agree with these numbers." So if you don't have, hey, I'm going to charge you $60 an hour, for example, and this is what I'm going to do, but we have a handshake and they say no, and you can't find somebody that says, we can do it for $20, it's going to affect you. And so having that clear agreement, following it through, if it does get litigated, the signed agreement is more powerful than 3 other professionals giving an estimate. And that's what you're going to have to rely on to figure out the market value of your work if you choose not to have that clear agreement.
That's awesome. I'm actually in my brain going through like, do all my clients have agreements? I need to go back and look. But that is an awesome point. So thank you. Now, what other challenges, maybe one more challenge that us small business owners might be facing on this journey?
Good question. What is the third?
No problem. We can edit this part out.
Number 3 would be time management. As we were touched on, is the time management. If you're focused for an hour, you actually would get more done in an hour than you would in a full 8-hour day being unfocused. I think that is one of the big things that I've found is, you sit down, I sit down at my desk and I start going and I look up and it's already 6 o'clock in the evening and it's, oh geez, where did my day go? So having a very strong schedule, living by the schedule, living by, Calendly or whatever schedule software system you have in place. But it's so powerful because even sitting down for a half an hour and just focusing on one thing is multitudes more efficient than saying, okay, I'm going to do this. Oh, the wind blew that way. I'm going to go over here. And oh, I got a phone call. And
yeah, I can definitely attest to that. Like you say, as we were talking before we hit record, working from home, not even just being a small business owner or entrepreneur, what have you, but even now that more people are working from home, even with their day jobs, it's so easy to get sidetracked with chores, laundry's over there, dishes need to be done, thinking about what's for dinner, thinking about, let me go get a snack, TV's there, bed's there. There's so many different distractions when you're at home. And I would also add as well, one thing that has helped me is to get out of my home. So now I have an office downtown, and I'll go there to work when I really want to get stuff done. Because I noticed that when I'm there, it's not as many distractions. Now, granted, it is like a co-working space, so other entrepreneurs stop in and say, hey, but it's not as bad as being at home. So I highly recommend, if you can afford it as a small business owner, definitely get some type of co-working space or something where you can get out of the house, because I found that to be very helpful. Another thing I found was using a Pomodoro timer. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that is where you do 20 minutes of solid work, 5-minute break, 20 minutes of solid work, 5-minute break. And then, you do a whole cycle and then you get a longer break. Now, I love that. Like when I'm trying to get something done, like for real, and not trying to mess around, I'll go ahead and put on the app, the timer, and I'll get it done. And it's amazing, like you said, how much you can get done with just that one piece of focus, where, it's like I can sit here and finish a whole article in like the first 20 minutes. And if I wasn't, focused, it would take me forever, because I'm like, I got to do this after this, and I got to do this, So those are kind of my 2 tips that has helped me as an entrepreneur kind of get through that. And then one more, actually. Go ahead.
One thing that you brought up, and it's the phenomenon of today is working from home, and how does one separate their home life from their workspace. And one of the tips I heard many moons ago is commute to work. If it means walking around the block, leave your house, walk around the block, and then when you get back to the same door, you go straight to work, because it does provide a bit of separation mentally of, okay, I did my commute, which separates the work from the home. And then at the end of the day, do the same, you commute, you exit the building, go for a walk and then come back, and now you're at home. And so just having that separation, I think, provides a lot more focus. And
I like that. I'm like, dang, I should have took a walk before I started this podcast now. So I'll save my last tip for another episode, because I like that one a lot better. But thank you so much, Robert, for coming on the show today. This was a great conversation. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of other small business owners out there. Now, if people were interested in finding out more about you, what you do, how could they find you?
They can find my website. It's robertmuncaster.com, and simply shoot me an email. The email is iam@robertmuncaster.com. Or use the contact form. And I'd love to have a conversation. If there's anything I can do to be of service, by all means, just ask.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And if you are driving or, multitasking while you're listening to this, I will have all of that in the show notes. So don't worry, just click the show notes and all the links will be there. Thank you so much again, Robert, for coming on. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you for listening, joining, and being a part of the Money Talk with Tiff podcast this week. You can check Tiff out every Thursday for a new Money Talk podcast. But if you just can't wait until next week, you can listen to previous podcast episodes at moneytalkwitht.com or follow Tiff on all social media platforms at Money Talk with T. Until next time, spend wise by spending less than you make. A word to the money wise is always sufficient.